This video is brought to you by Roll for Combat, an official Paizo actual play podcast. Join Acheron, Hap, Alhara, Riley, Darius, and the entire Circus of Wayward Wonders as they save the Starstone Isles from the dreaded extinction curse. Listen now to 3-Ring Adventure at rollforcombat.com. Hey everybody, Dave here with another Pathfinder rule reminder for you, and today's question is how do I interrupt an enemy from casting a spell? And the first option for that is going to be by disrupting the spell casting, which not everybody is by default going to be able to do, but if you have a feat, an ability, any trait that includes the word disrupt in its text, then you might be able to disrupt that spell casting if the conditions of that ability or effect are met. When you disrupt something, then that spell is lost, the actions are lost, the spell slot is lost, anything consumed in that spell is lost, and the spell is not cast. Now, probably the most common ways of disrupting a spell first for our spellcasters would be casting counter spells. So that's typically a first level feat you can check out, and if the enemy is casting a spell that you know or is in your repertoire, it's going to be different from each class to each class, but if you meet the conditions for your class's counterspell, then as a reaction you may be able to disrupt the enemy's casting of that spell. And the second fairly common way of disrupting a spell that's being cast is going to be through attacks of opportunity or the disrupt prey feat for our rangers out there. In both of those cases, if an enemy within your threatened area uses a manipulate action, then as a reaction you can make a melee attack against them, and if the result of that attack is a critical success, then it disrupts that triggering action. So if a enemy is within your threatened space or they're adjacent to you and they start casting a spell that has 3 of the 4 components, if they cast something with a somatic material or focus components, all 3 of those have the manipulate trait and would trigger attacks of opportunity or disrupt prey. Basically the only spells that would not be triggering disrupt prey or an attack of opportunity would be spells that only have a verbal component like inspire courage. Otherwise, it's going to trigger these reactions. The player spins their reaction to make a melee strike, and if that strike is a critical success, then it disrupts the spell that's being cast. And for our fighters out there, there's also disruptive stance. That feat will allow them to spend an action to enter a stance, where they can then disrupt these spells that have the manipulate trait on any successful strike, not just on the critical successes. So that's all great for our frontline melee folks who have built their characters with attacks of opportunity or disrupt prey, but what about everybody else? So a question that has come up at my table is, I don't have attacks of opportunity, but if I think my enemy is going to be casting a spell, can I use the ready action, spend 2 of my actions, and ready a melee strike with the conditional trigger being they start casting a spell? If that triggers the attack and I hit them with the attack and that attack is a critical success, will it disrupt their casting? And as far as I can tell by raw, no, it wouldn't. There's nothing strictly written in the rules that provide for that, but me at my table, I do allow my players to do that. I think getting the critical hit is often a little bit of a long shot anyway, and I would like there to be more ways that non-frontline fighters can do things to disrupt an enemy spell. So I do allow my players to use the ready action as if it was an attack of opportunity. It's costing them 2 actions on their turn, not just a reaction, so I think cost-wise it still works out pretty fairly, and it gives them at least a shot to disrupt the spell that's being cast. Now, there are a couple of other different ways that you could try to interrupt, or maybe not so much interrupt, but prevent the spell from being cast, and the first of those is to grab your enemy. If you use the grapple feature of the athletic skill and you succeed, then you apply the grabbed condition to your enemy, and that would impose a DC 5 flat check to any time that they want to cast a spell with a manipulate trait. And one more way that you might be able to prevent a spell from being cast is to apply the stupefied condition on that enemy. So those are just a handful of ways that you might be able to interrupt or prevent a spell from being cast that come to my mind. I am positive there's a lot more and different ways to do it, so please let me know in the comments if you know of any other ways to prevent or interrupt a spell from being cast. Also, please leave in the comments your suggestions for future rule reminders. I will make sure that I leave links in the description for any other videos I have that deal with this or related topics. If you would like to have more viewing on this subject, make sure you check out there. And as always, I want to make sure I take a moment to thank everybody out there who supports me, whether it's through subscribing to the Patreon, subscribing to this channel, clicking the like button, leaving comments, sharing the videos with your friends. I really appreciate everything the community does to support me in this channel, so thank you very much. Take care and happy gaming.